What's going on, guys? So in this video, I'm going to break down what the FLY5 are very quickly, and then I'm actually going to deep dive each FLY5 principle so that you can understand why we kind of try to stick to the FLY5 on a regular basis. So the FLY5 are, you got your eating window, which means it's the first time you take your bite of food, first bite of food you take, and then the last bite of food that you take. Okay. So if you start eating at 8 a.m. and stop eating at 8 p.m., that's your eating window. So 12-hour eating window. So 12-hour eating window or less. Then we got our water intake. We want to drink roughly half our body weight in ounces. That's just a good number to shoot for. You don't necessarily have to drink that much if you're not doing a ton of movement throughout the day or if you're not working out throughout the day. But we like to shoot for that round number just because it gives our bodies are basically half water, a little over half water, about 55 to 65%. So half our body weight in ounces in water. Then sunlight exposure is going to be around 15 minutes. We want to shoot for 15 minutes of being outside to get that sunlight exposure, preferably in the morning to set our circadian rhythm. So before 11 o'clock. So get 15 minutes of sunlight exposure outside before 11 o'clock. And then exercise. So this one is kind of a detailed FLY5 principle. We want to either walk 7,000 steps throughout the day, and you don't have to just do one or the other. You can add multiple of these, but you want to at least walk 7,000 steps during the day. You want to do at least a 15-minute HIIT workout, or you want to do a 30-minute strength training workout. All right. So if you're hitting one of those three, then you're hitting the FLY5 principle. Okay. So you don't have to do all three. You can do either the 7,000 steps, a 15-minute HIIT workout, I put one, and then a 30-minute strength training workout. And that would be hitting that principle. And then the last one is sleeping 7 to 9 hours at night. And that's just been, research has shown that 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night on average is pretty good for your brain and body. So those are the five: eating window, water intake, sunlight exposure, exercise, and sleep. All right. Now I'm going to go into each one of those and try to give you some good information on why we pick those. Okay. So your eating window is something that a lot of Americans have tended to have an eating window that's around, like, I would say, like 15 to 17 hours. It's kind of crazy because just the capability of eating late at night has just become more abundant these days. You can go through a drive-through at 2 in the morning and get a cheeseburger or a taco. So eating window, 12 hours or less. And the reason why we want it to be 12 hours or less is because it gives our body enough time to digest the food that we ate throughout the day. Okay. There's this thing called the migrating motor complex. And this is when I found out, like, this is one of the biggest reasons why you want to have a 12-hour or less eating window, is because your migrating motor complex actually takes around 12 to 14 hours to fully flush out everything in your body. Not flush out, but like go through the process of digesting everything in your body. Okay. So 12 to 14 hours is a long time. And so if you're eating late at night, and then you eat early in the morning, you're not giving your body enough time to really balance out your gut and digest everything that you ate. Okay. And with your 12-hour eating window, it's going to kind of line up with your sleep. You want to eat, or you want to finish your last meal around 2 to 3 hours before bedtime so that you give your body enough time to digest as much as possible that last meal that you ate. All right. And depending on how big the meal is, probably a little longer that you want to give your time. So if you go to bed around 10, you want to probably finish eating around 7 or 8. Or if you finish earlier than that, that's fine. Okay. So eating window, 12 hours or less. What I will say to stay on the eating window portion is they haven't found really any benefit to any eating window that's 8 hours or less. Okay. Research has shown that anything between 12 and 8 hours is pretty natural for our body. And not much research has been done on just one meal or just having a really, really small window, because honestly, throughout the day, we need to get enough proteins, carbohydrates, and fats to be able to fuel our body. So once again, 12-hour eating window or less. I tend to have a 10-hour eating window. I usually start eating around 9 and stop eating around 7 or 8. Okay, that's around a 10 or 11-hour eating window. Sometimes I don't eat until 10, so it kind of fluctuates. But I usually wake up around 7. So I give my body around 2 to 3 hours to prepare to eat. And that's another thing you want to do is kind of give your body enough time to really wake up and before you eat. Some people ask if coffee is or anything other than water is going to kind of mess up your eating window. What I'll say is, if you want to be like really strict with this, don't do anything outside of water, coffee, just black coffee, or tea with nothing in them. If you want to, be pretty strict with it, that's not to say that like if you do put a little sugar, a little milk in your coffee or tea in the morning, that's gonna like completely ruin your fast. But I think just psychologically, it just helps me to know like, oh, I'm not gonna eat or drink anything that is of abundance before I start my first meal. And it just helps me psychologically. And some people are like, oh, does it like ruin my fasting state if I do, have coffee with creamer in it, or if can't drink coffee without creamer in it, then I would say maybe even hold off until that eating window opens up. So spend enough time on the eating window right now. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. Okay. Now we have our water intake. Our bodies, men and women's bodies, are around 60 to 65% water. Okay. And to be honest, there are so many different options out there for drinking fluids that a lot of times water takes the back burner because we want something that's like pleasing to the lips. Anyways, that's a weird thing to say, kind of, but so roughly half your body weight in ounces. So I weigh about 190, so that's about public math, 95 ounces of water, okay, throughout the day. And they say, if you work out, if you do a hard workout or something, you may need to even drink more. So, if I'm up probably from 7 to 10, that's, around eight ounces per hour, which is, not that much when you think about it. But that kind of gives you a really good framework to say, okay, I have a really big water bottle. And it allows me to say, if I finish this big water bottle, which is like 64 ounces, and then drink more, I know I'm on the right path. But one thing I will say is, a lot of times when we start these types of things, we go pretty ham on these principles, and you'll drink water and you have to pee all the time. And that might be a little much. If you find yourself having to use the bathroom constantly because you've drank too much, maybe back off a little bit. Or if you are a bigger person than normal, maybe start off with just like 100 ounces of water, or, something that's manageable. But essentially, most people don't drink enough water during the day. So this one is actually really fun because a lot of people feel like that water actually makes you feel more full. All right. Our cells in our body are like 80, 75 or 80% water, maybe more, maybe 90. It's crazy. And so, and your brain is around something like 70 or 80% water. So when those things are dehydrated, you're going to feel more sluggish. You're going to probably feel hungry, and those types of things. It's good to stay hydrated, essentially. So eating window, then water intake, and then we got our sunlight exposure. Okay, sunlight exposure, and I'll probably go back to water intake here in a second. But sunlight exposure, we really take sunlight for granted now that we live inside and we live these cushy lives a lot of times. The sun actually does a really good job of setting our circadian rhythm. And how it does that is in the morning when we get blue light into our eyes, it actually signals to our body a ganglion cell. Gosh, I can't think of the word, but I'm brain farting here. Blue light signals to our body to wake up. Okay, it produces this thing called melanopsin in the body. Melatonin is for sleep or makes us feel sleepy, where melanopsin is actually what actually wakes us up. When you're producing melanopsin, you're not producing melatonin, or not as much. So just think about that. In the morning, we want to try to get outside and get sunlight. You want to get about 10 to 15. You don't have to get that much, but I recommend getting outside and get around 15 minutes of sunlight to set your circadian rhythm. You don't want to stare right at the sun. You don't want to blind yourself, but you want to, get outside, walk around, let your body know that it's time to wake up, and your cortisol levels will get a little higher. Your alertness will get a little better. And then also, this is going to help you fall asleep later in the evening because your body, after you wake up, usually about 14 hours after you wake up, your body starts producing melatonin naturally. And so that's why you want to get outside, is because your body says, man, now I know that in 14 hours, I probably need to start making more melatonin to get this person ready for sleep. All right. So sunlight exposure is also really good for vitamin D. Since we are inside 90% of the time, it's good to just get outside and get some vitamin D on your skin. You don't have to wear like, shorts and a t-shirt, but it's good to do that because your skin absolutely actually absorbs sunlight and converts that to vitamin D, which is really, really important in the body. And so the sun is a natural way to absorb vitamin D. So got sunlight exposure. Then we're going to talk about exercise. So exercise is something where we've become a very sedentary species. Okay. We've become the type of people that sit at a desk all day or just sit and watch TV a lot of times or just sit in general and don't move a lot. So one of the things, everybody tends to point to doing 10,000 steps, but research has shown that even just doing around 7,000 steps is super beneficial for you. Obviously, it depends on what your activity level is, but shooting for 7,000 steps a lot of times is a little more manageable because 10,000 can be around 5 to almost 6 miles for some people. Whereas 7,000 is around 3 to 4 miles. And right now, on average, the average American only walks around 3,500 to 4,000 steps. Okay. So when we want to average more than 7,000 steps a day if we can. And then I go to this. If you can't get 7,000 steps in, doing a 15-minute HIIT workout is recommended by the American Heart Association. So 75 minutes of vigorous exercise throughout the week is what is recommended by the American Heart Association. What they say is 5 rounds of 75 minutes total. Okay, so that's 5 rounds of 15 minutes total. It gives you 75 minutes. And so it's very beneficial to get that heart rate up and do a HIIT workout every now and then if you're capable, obviously. But if you're not, get those 7,000 steps in. And the last thing I'll say is the third one is strength training is very, very important. So the research and a lot of health and wellness experts say is like you want to be doing aerobic exercise, but you also want to be doing strength training exercises. All right. So the strength training exercises are really good for our bones and for our muscles, obviously, because as we get older, our bones start to deteriorate or are deteriorating. And then our muscles are also getting smaller over time. So doing some type of strength training is also very helpful because it keeps those bones nice and strong and keeps your muscles nice and strong as well. So for exercise, 7,000 steps or 15-minute HIIT workout or 30-minute strength training, and you're hitting that principle as well. All right, for sleep. Now we are on to sleep. This is probably one of the most important things in health and wellness. And we've definitely found that out over the last 10 to 15 years that the badge of honor of saying I'll sleep when I'm dead is just not a very good badge of honor to keep anymore. It's more like, hey, I'm going to go to sleep so that I can crush the day tomorrow. Okay. And the reason why you do 7 to 9 hours of sleep, that's around 4 to 5, actually 5 to 6 rounds of a sleep cycle. So sleep cycles naturally range from around, I think it's 60 minutes to 90 minutes, and it can probably be a little longer. So depending on what your REM cycles are and all that other stuff, if you do 5 cycles of a 90-minute cycle, that is 7.5 hours. Okay, public math, doing a good job here. And if you do 6, then that's 9 hours of sleep. And what they say is that sleep is unbelievably important for your brain and your body to recover. Okay, you have this stuff in your body that builds up over the day. It's called adenosine. Okay, throughout the day, your body builds up this molecule called adenosine. I'll explain how, because your body burns this molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And when your body burns ATP, the byproduct of ATP is adenosine. Adenosine actually makes us feel sleepy. Okay. And when we start getting tired over throughout the day and then melatonin kicks in at nighttime, we go to sleep. And when we go to sleep, it allows our body to really flush out that adenosine and then it gets us prepared for the next day. So adenosine is in our brains and our body and makes us feel tired. All right. And the later we stay up and the less sleep we get, the more that adenosine builds up and the more you feel like you have to drink more coffee to stay awake. What's kind of funny about coffee, and I'm just giving you a fun fact here, is coffee, the caffeine actually blocks the adenosine receptors in your body. And so that's why coffee tends to keep you awake, is because it blocks those adenosine receptors. So when you're producing the adenosine, it can't latch on to the receptors they're supposed to latch on to make you feel tired. So that's why we tend to crash sometimes when we don't have our caffeine, or sometimes at night when we're just like exhausted, because caffeine can only help so much. So those are the FLY5. That was a little longer than I probably anticipated, around 16 minutes. Your eating window, 12 hours or less, water intake, sunlight exposure, exercise, and sleep. Now, when you look at those 5 things, those aren't incredibly tough. We're not trying to do the 75 hard here. Believe me, you don't have to work out 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. You don't have to, read 15 pages of a book every day. You don't have to, we're not going crazy here. I call these the Roth IRA of health, because these are the things that if you consistently do over 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, you're going to build up habits and qualities that your mind and body are going to love. Okay. I'm not going to say it's going to make you an Olympic athlete, but you would be surprised. These things compound on each other. Okay. And when I say that, is like, a lot of times people get the workout and the meals in, but they don't get the sleep, or they don't know about the eating window. And then sometimes people are like, oh, I need to focus on, exercise, but I don't get the eating portion down. Well, all of these things I have developed over time, because I believe these are the most important things that are going to all compound on each other. And you don't have to go extreme with any one of these, but if you do them over a long period of time, you start to understand, man, this is actually very beneficial when I'm doing them all together. Okay. Um, when you have an eating window that's 12 hours or less on a consistent basis. And what I'll say also, with that being said, you don't have to do these 100% of the time to feel the benefit. 80 to 90% of the time, if you're knocking these things out, then you're going to feel the benefits over a long period of time. So, and that's because we're not robots, we're humans, and we're not perfect. So that doesn't mean some nights you're going to not get your 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That doesn't mean, or that means that there are some times where you will eat outside your window. But if you consistently plan for these things, it just starts becoming who you are, and you start doing the pre-planning that it takes to understand how to do these things, right? Like, a lot of times and this is so true in today's world, our environment's not always designed for us to do these things. To be honest, 100% honest, our environment is not designed for us to always eat out a 12-hour window, drink a lot of water, get sunlight, exercise, and sleep. You have to make a concerted effort, and it doesn't have to be a huge effort, but you have to make some type of effort to do these things, because most of the time people aren't going to set these things up perfectly for you. So that's the one thing I will say, is a lot like getting sunlight, right? Like, I get up every morning during the week, especially, and I go for about a 15 to 30-minute walk usually. Do I have to do that? No. Could I just sit inside? Yes. But 90% of the time I get up and go for a walk, because it's just the habit I have ingrained in my body. And I like to get the sunlight because I know the benefits of that. These things are not going to turn your life around automatically. Some people, it does. It actually makes a huge difference in a short amount of time. But it's definitely not like the silver bullet. It's something that you can always depend on to know, like, I have a great regimen that I can fall back on. And so for some people, this is going to be really tough, because you have kids, you have responsibilities, you have a job, you have all these things you have to do. And you have to make a really big effort to do these things sometimes because the people in your lives may not do the fly five, right? May not be on board with doing these things 90, 80 to 90% of the time, but they are not you. And that's what I'd say is a lot of times people aren't taking your health and wellness into mind. They are taking um, their wants and needs into mind, which don't always align with what you need. And so that's one thing I'll end on is just because somebody else wants you to do something doesn't mean that that's in your best interest from a wellness standpoint. And I'm not saying you always have to make you always have to make the right decision from a wellness standpoint because there's never like a extremely right and wrong all the time. There's all these gray areas. Okay. Um, you don't have to go super extreme with this in order for it to work. But the more regimented, the more consistent you are with these Fly Five, I promise you, you'll start to see a difference weeks after weeks after weeks, months. You'll just be like, man, I feel better. Now, and the other thing I will say, I said I was going to end, but I'm going to end on this. Just because you miss one of these things doesn't mean you completely ruined it. Okay. Just because you get a bad night's sleep doesn't mean you ruined it. Just because you didn't hit your 7,000 steps or 15-minute workout or 30-minute workout doesn't mean it's completely gone. The reason why we do these things and we check these things off is because we're building up our wellness bank. All right. If you can knock out all 5 of these things for 3 weeks straight and you're feeling great and you miss one, the next week, you've done a really good job and you can keep going. If you get 4 out of 5 of these things for the most part, most of the time, you're going to be doing pretty well too. So don't be too hard on yourself. The whole point of this is to try to do these things and check these off the box most days. And if you do that, you'll start to get that momentum. Okay. That's all I got. I'm going to finish the video there. I know it's kind of long. We already are almost the 22-minute mark. And if you ever have any questions, I love answering these questions about the Fly 5 because they've been a very big proponent of mine. And I've been doing them for about 10 years now, really focusing on them. And I feel like I feel good. I don't always get great sleep. I don't always eat within my window. I know those 2 things are true, but most of the time I can do these things and feel good. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Those are the Fly 5. Get after it.